Similar to PD, the construction time is really, really short, about 1 day on your roof, 1 day inside the utility room, and max, typically a residential job is done in 3 days. So on the left is just outlining, these are called base plates that on the right that you put right into the rafters with 2 lag bolts. Then you flash up under the shingles 1 course to make sure that it doesn't leak. You do that a bunch of times, you get a rail, and on top of that rail, you just put the modules. It's extremely simple. You have the little clips right here, and then the modules fit into it. Put 3 side by side, and then it's literally all done at the top. This is where the hot water will come out of the module. Best roof, same as PV in terms of south-facing roof and new construction. Also, the best site is if you have 3 or more people in a household. Like if you use a lot of hot water, it's more economical. So, as well as an expensive fuel source. So if you have like natural gas, not necessarily as economical as compared to if you have oil or propane or electric. Also, it makes it very economical as well as if you have an old water heater that already needs to be replaced. Let's say your water heater is like 6 or 7 years old. It costs you $1,000 or $1,500 to replace. With the new tanks, you can swap out that water heater. So instead of paying $1,700 to replace it, and then you just replace it with 1 tank, which is also the storage tank for the solar thermal system. So that makes it much more economical because you already needed to spend $1,500 on a new water heater, and now you're going to spend a little bit more, and I'll get into specifics of what that little bit more is on a solar thermal system. The incentives for solar thermal are pretty simple. So you have the 30% ITC. There's also a state tax credit of 15% up to $1,000. Then there's mass CEC rebates, which tend to be around $1,000 to $2,000 cash. And as of now, they also have $1,500 for metering. So you can get the system metered in real time, and they'll pay for it. And the $1,500 is actually way more than you need. The systems actually only cost $1,000 or less. So they're kind of giving you $500 for free. For solar thermal installations in general, you always need some sensors on it for the controls to run, for the pumps to know when to run. But this allows for you to to put sensors on more places and then export that to a dashboard so you can see it online. Like, is your system working? Is it producing? Is it producing as much as the installer said it was going to produce? That kind of information.
So they're really encouraging you to what if you didn't have that? How?
You would never know if it was broken. That's the problem. Okay, if it wasn't metered in real time, you would not know. It could stop working. The only way you would know, if you were really keen, is that in the summer, your boiler would kick on when it shouldn't. Because in the summer it's hot enough so that all your unless it's cloudy out for like 2 or 3 days. But even the modules produce about 50% or 30 to 50% of rated power when it's cloudy out. Moderate clouds anyway. So solar thermal economics are like geothermal, are a little bit more harder to pin down compared to PV, because with PV, all you do is you say, what do I pay from the electric utility? With solar thermal, the value of a solar thermal BTU is equal to the value that it's offsetting, but getting to know exactly what that value is determined by your fuel source and the efficiency of your system. So on here I just have oil, electricity, natural gas, but you could reverse engineer this with propane. But basically with oil, 1 therm costs $3.17. With electricity, 1 therm costs $4.39, and with natural gas about $1.26. So if you have a solar thermal system that makes 140 therms, you have to kind of figure out the value of the therms that's displacing. So in this example, the value of a solar thermal system has 3 different values depending upon what your existing hot water system is. And obviously the most expensive fuel sources, electricity, oil, and propane are the most expensive. This is just a base installed cost. It's pretty standard for a family to install 2 modules, which is 80 square feet, and would cost about $10,000 gross. Around Boston, the permitting fees are a little more expensive, so it might be around $1,100 or $1,200. But investment tax credit from Mass Clean Energy Center, you get about $2,200. If it was monitored, you get $1,500. There's a personal tax credit. And those are all basically year one. So those are all getting minus directly from the $10,000. And I think just doing some math right there, that means that after year one, you're not paying $10,000, you're paying around, $3,000, or like $2,500. So basically after year one, you're paying $2,500, and then you're saving around $443 every year, inflating at 5% a year. So the IRRs, and I'll get to what IRR is in a little bit, is 19% over 20 years. A good way to think about, though it's not exactly the same, to think about IRR is it's equivalent to an interest rate on a loan. So right now, the cash that I've sitting in my bank account gets a 0.76% interest rate. So clearly, it would be wise if I owned a house. For PV, in my example, it was 15%. For this, it's 19%. It's just a better investment. Solar thermal. These are questions for contractors. Number one thing that contractors will do to kind of make their economics look a little better than they actually are is they'll be very liberal with how many gallons of hot water you think that they're assuming that you use every day. So like a good rule of thumb is that it's 20 gallons for the first person and then 15 gallons each day after. Some people will use 20 gallons per person or 25 gallons. So you'll have 3 people and they'll say, oh, you use 75 gallons of hot water per day. And then what happens is that's what they're basing the economic value of their system on. So when you're talking with a contractor, you have to be very kind of keen on getting that number pretty accurate, because the risk is that if they overestimate that number, you'll overestimate power production. Again, what is their roofing experience? Will they monitor the system again with the rebate from Mass CEC? It's cheap to do that. NABCEP certification is just a designer installer certification. It kind of shows that they've done a bunch of projects and they know what they've done. So if you're going to get solar thermal, you definitely want to make sure they were NABCEP certified, and also past projects, because just kind of customer service and will they respond to you and call you back is a key issue. So researching that beforehand is really nice.